All right, ladies and gents, we should be live now. Hopefully, your Tuesday is off to just a banging start, and hopefully, your Monday went well as well. We had a very boring NFL game last night, but at least the basketball was fun. As always, we got another basketball slate to jump right into.
Yeah, OT game last night. Bunch of good games. The game I liked the best was not a good game. Clippers won by 30. It was funny. I just made a couple small lineups and I threw them in that big 15, and I used like a bunch of pieces that all were really good, cheap pieces. And I had, Dame and Paul George, and it did not work out as well as I thought it would.
So you felt good going into the last game, and then that game being a
I mean,
blowout just kind of messed it all up.
not like I was gonna like take down the big tournament, but like certainly I was gonna like cash nicely. You know what I mean? Instead, I like barely cashed one of three.
Yeah, I know how that goes. I know how that goes. I think we all do. So click that thumbs up button, guys. Memberships available through the website, weekly, monthly, whatever works for you, all available. Subscribe to the station if you're new to it. Click the bell for notifications. If you guys are on YouTube, you know all the little talking points we have. Let's start out with today's cash play of the day. It's going to go by a young name of DeJounte Murray of the San Antonio Spurs. I know you've been a big fan of his for a long time. He's very fairly priced at 7,300. And quite frankly, what this comes down to is he's just way too fast for the old ass Lakers. The Lakers are old and slow. We know that. That was always going to be a thing that they were going to have to deal with coming into the year. They're probably going to struggle defensively, at least early in the season, as they're trying to, get all these new pieces in. And Murray's been solid, not spectacular to start the year, but he's shot it poorly. And that's one of the things you have to like about him. He can stuff the stat sheet. Like, this guy is going to have, what, 5, 10, 15 triple doubles this year because he's such a good rebounder for a guard. Really, really good spot for him. He matches up real well with the Lakers.
Yeah, he's like you said, very fairly priced, maybe even too cheap. I wonder if the Lakers, you've talked about it a bunch now, how old they are and slow. Do you think that will ultimately be their downfall? Or do you think like in the playoffs that won't matter as much? Do you think they'll add a young piece? Like what's your thought there?
Oh, God, I think they are one of the more interesting chemistry experiments that we've watched in a really, really long time because they are legit, like, old, right? Like, the only guy that you could think of that was young is like Taylor Horton Tucker. He's not even out there right now. And it's going to help when you get like Ariza and Ellington around so you get some three-point
Those
shooting, but they're still going to be old. So I do think that I don't know what they would trade, but a young 3-and-D guy would make a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not like Ariza and Ellington are young by any means. The only thing I'll say is like I know the fit, isn't perfect on paper, but the talent of AD, LeBron, and Westbrook, you know, you could say is even better than Brooklyn's. Brooklyn's might fit better, but they might have the most talent in the league. So if they do figure it out, like we talked about yesterday, even though we're not sure why exactly, they're still the team that like we think is like the team to beat in the West.
Until if LeBron gets hurt this year, I'm going to kind of willing admit that it's probably the end for him because that'll be 3 times in 4 years after never being hurt in his career. But until that happens, I'm still going to give LeBron James the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, same, especially because there is no other team that's like right there. There's a bunch of other teams that could be. We don't think Phoenix is like some sort of dynasty. They're right there, but I don't think that Phoenix is any better than Utah. They just happened to make it farther last year. Do you agree?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with you on that one. There is no powerhouse in the West, which is why you just look at all the talent of LeBron, a guy we're about to talk about, Westbrook. Like, they should figure something out. Heard a nice stat this morning, though, talking about Russell Westbrook's last 2 seasons with the Washington Wizards and playing with Houston the year before that. And then went through his numbers. Like, the first, half of the year,
Right.
terrible. Second half of the year, really turned it around and got things figured out.
That's been a big theme, and I thought I'd mentioned it to you. Maybe I forgot. Like it's going to take the Lakers a while to mold and to gel. But like you just said, Westbrook throughout the past couple of years on new teams has been awful for the first half, and then really good for the second half. Remember how good he was last year for the second half of the season?
Oh, he was great. So there'll be an interesting experiment. I think more importantly, getting back to tonight, though, I think this is going to be a game. Like, a lot of the guys that we're about to bring up is going to be on this game. This is not the sexiest DFS slate of the NBA season, maybe the ugliest one of the early season. But I look at Lakers at San Antonio, given, you got, experience on one hand, and then you got the younger San Antonio Spurs, no Patty Mills, no DeMar DeRozan, a young team now, but with a lot of extra athleticism over the Lakers. I expect this one to be close. Doesn't mean it will be, but if you looked at all the games tonight, I have a really, really good feeling about this one being competitive.
Agreed.
So, all right, well, let's keep moving down the list. We're going to be hot and heavy on this game, and let's talk about your GPP guy, Kelton Johnson. Again, no DeRozan, no Patty Mills. I still think that a bunch of the Spurs guys are a little too cheap as they have not adjusted to the new season, really.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we talked about it on the members only video. There's no DeRozan. There's no LaMarcus Aldridge. There's no Patty Mills. Like, they didn't really replace those guys with anything. In the
Thaddeus Young.
Yeah, exactly. In the DeRozan deal, they got back like bench players that might not even play that much. So you're talking about their main guy last year, like their number one in basically everything, gone. Keldon Johnson, now a year into the system. I love that he was on the Olympic team, even though he didn't play. Just that experience, I think, is going to be huge for him. And you mentioned it, a game we think is competitive. The Lakers are slow. They're going to give up points. Johnson's young and athletic and fast. This is a good spot for him. He's averaging 6x on this tag already. Like, he's got 40 plus in him easy, I think. He's not going to do it every night. He's going to be inconsistent. That's why I like him more for tournaments. But I think he's just too cheap for his upside here.
Inconsistent maybe, but I have no problem using him in cash games tonight either.
Fair.
Both of the Spurs we just brought up, I think, could be played in either format.
I get it.
All right, so speaking of the run back, so let's actually take a second and talk about the bring back on this one. And what I mean by that is, as important as ever, if there's two guys you like, and this especially applies to people who enter multiple lineups on the night. If you only enter one lineup, I think you kind of just play who your best plays are.
Right.
If you're entering multiple lineups, and with the way the NBA is and games just not being competitive far too often, like, for example, if you like Christian Wood a lot tonight and you like Luka Doncic, you should be playing them in the same GPP lineup, because now you're just piggybacking off that game being close and, pie in the skies when it goes into overtime. There's so many blowouts in the NBA right now that don't play guys you don't like just to play them. But if there's two guys you like I'd rather play Paul George and Dame together last night than separately if you wanted exposure to each of them. So if you like Anthony Davis like we do tonight and you like the Spurs, concentrate them in one lineup together and piggyback off the notion that this game is going to be close. We talked about this one at length on the members only video. We both seem to like Anthony Davis as much as any stud out there tonight. He's $1,000 cheaper than some of the other guys, $1,800 in the case of Curry. He's looked solid to start the year, and just keep your fingers crossed he doesn't get hurt, as we all know that's a thing.
That's always going to be a thing. I just really like AD this whole year. I think he's too cheap for his upside. I've mentioned it a bunch. We're never going to see the AD, like the old AD for New Orleans, because he still has LeBron and Westbrook, but I think the whole team's making it a purpose to get him going. He's a guy they need if they want to, win the title again. He averaged career lows in like everything last year. Has already started to pick it up big time. I like him a lot at this tag in a game that should be close. And as much, crap as we've talked about the Lakers, they're still the better team here. Like, they're going to be able to do what they want to the Spurs on the offensive end. They have no answer for Davis.
No, they don't. No, they just don't. There's no other way around it. All right, let's move into long shots of the day. So both long shots worked out yesterday. Let's see if we can't do the same thing today. Let's start with my guy Otto Porter, 4,200, taking on the pathetic Oklahoma City Thunder. So I think one of the things I wanted to bring up, and I put it in the first bullet point, with all the injuries this dude has suffered the last couple of seasons, like, it's hard to remember this, but like, he's good. I mean, this is a guy that used to be like routinely 6 to 7K when he would get a full allotment of minutes. Now, he's 4,200. He's taken on one of the worst teams in basketball, if not the worst team. And what I like to see is the progression that he's made. They were really easy on him night one there in Golden State. Only played 12 minutes, only gave you 8 DK points. Game 2, 18 minutes, 14 points. Game 3, really knocked the dust off. Played 24 minutes, got you 28 DK points. So no reason for me to think tonight that he's going to go below the 24 minutes. I guess the question would be is, if this game is a big blowout, which is always a risk when you play against the Oklahoma City Thunder, what does Kerr do with him? I don't know. We'll see. This is the fourth game on the Golden State Warriors. I don't know what Kerr would do with him. Probably comes when the blowout is, how he's playing, and everything like that. So we're definitely put him in the long shot category for a reason. But I would feel okay using him in any lineup tonight because he's very low risk at this salary.
Yeah, he's so cheap. The only thing I'll disagree with, I'm not sure I'd call him good. He's competent. And when he's healthy, he can definitely be okay for DFS. The guy that he reminds me of for till the day I die, that I'll always put these two guys together, who actually played really well last night. Do you know who I'm thinking about?
Will Chamberlain, because they look the same? No, I can't think of who it is.
Jabari Parker.
Oh, yeah, he did play well last night. And when I say good, I just mean like when he was healthy, Otto Porter was an above average player.
I knew what you meant. Like, let me ask you this. At their best, who's better, Porter or Parker?
I mean, at their very best, Parker was better. But Porter was a better shooter and a better defensive player, so it would be maybe more valuable to certain teams.
Okay, fair enough.
So when the Bucks did not like make him a priority to stick with the team, like all I'm gonna say is like Milwaukee fans, a lot of you were all over my social media talking about what a mistake it was. I think Milwaukee might have made the right move there.
You think?
I'm going to bet good money. The right move was to move on from Jabari Parker.
They would have had to pay him too. That's the thing. Like, it's not like, oh, they just would have had Jabari Parker. Like, probably instead of like Middleton and you know what I mean? Like, yeah, definitely made the good move there.
Wouldn't have Drew Holiday.
No, I mean, their team would be completely different if they had paid Jabari Parker.
Right. So this is where, for guys like us who watch a ton of sports, and for like a lot of you guys too who watch a ton of sports, like there's a difference between what jumps off your TV screen and what actually helps you win. Like Parker was fun to watch because that guy could throw it down. Some of his dunks were incredible. He was a decent shooter. He was fun to watch, but he didn't play defense. Well, famously quoted for saying that's not what I do. Like there's a difference between playing winning basketball.
He said that's not what he got paid for. Another guy like that reminds me of these guys that might even have been better than either of them offensively is Michael Beasley.
Right? Michael Beasley could flat out put it in the bucket, but he was a ball-stopping defensive liability. Like, that doesn't translate to winning in the NBA just because it's fun to watch.
Yeah, exactly. So it's fun to talk about, if nothing else.
All right, next up, you want to talk about Sean Tate. And, I mean, real quickly, this is the long shot section. Sean Tate, in 3 games, has shown you a real low floor and a really high ceiling. And this is why on a bad team like Houston, and Houston's a bad team, you're going to see a wide variety of results from Sean Tate.
You're going to see a wide variety of results from a lot of these guys every night, just because you said it. Houston's a bad team. Even their good players like Christian Wood, he's not going to be consistent every night because they're going to get blown out a bunch of games. But when they're close, those guys are going to be good. And Tate, as you've mentioned, we've seen the upside twice in a row. He has that bad game, and that's why he's a long shot here. But at this price point, priced with like all those other Spurs, talked about Kelton Johnson, I think he goes overlooked here. And yeah, Dallas could blow Houston out, but Houston also could be competitive here. I mean, I'm not going to be shocked if this game is like, let's say Dallas wins by 10 even, but it's a 8 to 12 point game the entire time. Like, in order for like it to be blowout, it needs to be 25 plus, and that's not likely. So even if that happens, Tate might play because it's so much unknown. There's just a lot of unknown because it's game 4, game 3 for some of these teams. I think Tate has real upside at this price, and he won't get a lot of love.
No, he does have upside. I mean, he's shown it 2 or 3 games already, right? I mean, why wouldn't he have upside if he already showed us a 40 burger this year in 3 games? Like that, we know what's out there. We're not scared of Dallas, but Houston is atrocious. That was the funny part about this slate tonight. We're like, it's some defensive-oriented games, and I mean, arguably the 2 worst teams in basketball are the Rockets and the Thunder, and they both play tonight.
Trying to think about who else is up there.
The Magic.
Yeah, the Magic might be the worst.
The Magic versus the Thunder, a battle.
Thunder are probably worse. The Magic have more talent than the Thunder. I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean the Thunder are shy or bust.
I mean the Thunder have are like tanking. I mean they have no one except they have Shy and picks.
Got a lot of picks.
The Magic aren't good, but at least like they've got guys that could be good. Cole Anthony, Jalen Suggs. We talk about Bamba. Now they have Wendell Carter. It's funny. I was hearing someone talk about this. Like they never unleashed Bamba and then traded for Wendell Carter. And then finally, after they traded for Wendell Carter, they unleashed Bamba and he's actually good. So now they have both these guys. Like that's just a bad organization.
Yeah, some teams just really don't seem to know what they're doing.
Like why trade for Wendell Carter when you got Bamba right there and then pay him? It just makes no sense.
I don't know, man. I can't make sense out of a lot of things. So we're going to switch subjects for just 1 second before we end the video. So obviously I'm a Packer fan. Everybody knows that. With Devontae all but ruled out And the Packers, I think almost just as importantly, now probably missing their defensive coordinator because of COVID. You give them any shot Thursday night at the Arizona.
Yeah, definitely, man. Like one guy doesn't really, change that much for me. Granted, if they're, Devontae definitely changes things because it's Rodgers' security blanket. But man, I love Rodgers with his back against the wall. Like, talk about Baker Mayfield. Like, I'm gonna go for like full circle with this. Like, Baker Mayfield's a fine quarterback. Like, he's not bad. He can lead you. He can be a quarterback on a team that wins a game that goes deep in the playoffs if the team is built around him. But he's not a guy that, when your team is down and your team is missing guys and it's back against the wall, is going to carry your team to victories. Aaron Rodgers is that guy. Like, there are a couple guys like that. There's actually more. The problem with Baker Mayfield isn't necessarily Baker Mayfield, is that there's Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow. All those guys are better than Baker Mayfield. That's the problem with Cleveland. Sorry to put it there. But as your question goes, yeah, because they have Aaron Rodgers. And would I be shocked if they lost this game? No. I mean, Arizona's a really good team, obviously. But you got Aaron Rodgers, and man, as Stephen A. likes to say, he is a bad man.
I'm more worried about the defensive coordinator being out. Like, I saw
for me, like, one game, like, I get it. It's not good. And I know, he called a great game and they were finally good in the red zone last time. Like, they got a whole week. I don't know if he's there or not, but he's in their heads. They've, already played 6 or whatever games. Like, I just feel like, as Arizona showed when they were without their head coach in Cleveland, it just didn't make that big of a difference. Cleveland won their playoff game against Pittsburgh last year without Stefanski. I get it. It's not like it's a good thing. I just don't think that it really, for me, factors into how I think Green Bay can definitely win this game. Because while I do think Arizona is good, like legit good, I don't think there's some like Super Bowl lock or anything like that.
So I'll phrase it this way. When Zach Ertz was traded the other day, I made a comment on somebody's post on social media, like, aren't the Bucks they're like 4-1, not 5-0 at the point? And they're like, well, he got traded to the Cardinals. I'm like, oh, yeah. Because when I saw he got traded to the Cardinals, I was thinking, oh, the undefeated team. But in my mind, I translated it to the best team in the NFC. And the best team in the NFC is still the Buccaneers.
The best team in the NFC is still the Buccaneers. The Rams are also right there.
Yep.
And Arizona, is right there because your record is. But I think the point, like, if these teams were to play in a playoff game, I'd still take, the Buccaneers or the Rams over them.
Yeah, if it was Bucks Cardinals in the playoffs, I would bet on the Bucks. No questions about it. Like, I wouldn't even have to think about it. I wouldn't have to look at who's healthy or anything like that.
Same.
You got Tom Brady in the Bucks. Yeah, that's who I'm picking.
I think we're like, there's a chance we're sleeping on the Cardinals here. Now,
maybe
the Cardinals might go on like a 2-5 stretch, and like this conversation's all for naught. But they are loaded offensively, and I think their defense is actually good. Like, I do think the Cardinals are legit good. I just don't think they're ready yet to win the Super Bowl.
I have no arguments with it. I think they are good. I just, if I, as a Packer fan, knowing my team is basically all but in the playoffs already because we play in a weak division, if we're getting to the playoffs right now, everybody's at least relatively full strength. I fear the Bucks. That's who I fear the most.
So, fair enough. I've been wanting to ask you about this too, and since it seems like you have a couple minutes, I want to flip it back to my team because whole time kind of gave me crap. Like, Cleveland's good. You're just a Browns fan. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to be good. They're fine. Man, they don't look so fine to me. And I know that they haven't been healthy. So when they get healthy, they should be better. But the problem is what I just said. And I want to hear your take on this. It's not that Baker Mayfield is bad. He's fine. But when you're playing against Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, even like Ryan Tannehill, I mean, all these guys are better than him. And it's going to be damn hard to win a Super Bowl with the 8th best quarterback in the AFC, even with the best running game out there. What's your take on the Browns right now?
Well, I think that you mentioned it with the injuries. Is anybody been as injured as the Browns? I mean, there's a couple teams that have had to deal with it. But from an offensive perspective, Jarvis Landry is the straw that stirs the drink, and he's been out. You've missed both tackles at multiple occasions. Now you've been missing running backs left and right. Like, Nick Chubb isn't just good. He's arguably the second best runner of the football after Derrick Henry.
The thing about Chubb that people don't get, and like, I love Hunt, and I think they're very comparable, but Chubb sets the tone. Like, there's a reason Hunt is so much better when Chubb is in, because he sets the tone. Like you just said, Derrick Henry's the best running back in football. It's not really close right now. He's the best runner of the football. But Nick Chubb's right after him in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't think he's second, he's got to be top 5. Like, if you want to take Dalvin Cook over Nick Chubb, fine. Dalvin Cook's also fantastic.
Agreed.
If Saquon Barkley was ever healthy, yes, he's fantastic. If Christian McCaffrey was ever healthy, he's fantastic. But Nick Chubb can tote the rock.
What about the Browns' defense, though? All these names, they were supposed to be so good. Like, they have not. They have games where they look great, and then they have games where they look awful. And Baker Mayfield, what I just talked about with Aaron Rodgers, cannot lead his team from behind. I don't feel like.
No, he can't. You're not going to be in a situation where if you're relying on the right arm of Baker Mayfield to win games in the playoffs, you're not going to win those games. But
it's such a luxury for you, man. I know, sports are just what it is. It's the luck of the draw, but you've had this for basically your whole Packers life. You have that guy. Even when your team is down. I mean, there's those memes of in Dallas, those fans, they're celebrating. You know what I'm talking about?
I love that picture.
That's the greatest thing ever. I want that so bad. And the Browns are good and they're close. And I know what your butt is going to be. They could get there based on their running game and their defense. I just feel like in today's NFL, man, you need your quarterback to make plays. Landry coming back is going to be huge. My biggest thing about the Browns is just how are they even better than the Bengals? Burrow is who I thought he is. He looks really good. Are they better than the Ravens? I mean, I'm not sure how good the Browns really are.
That's a great question, because last week was you just kind of watch that game and you're like, damn, are the Bengals that good? I was telling some guys, I was telling one of my clients this morning, do you not put more stock in the Packers going and winning a game in Cincinnati now than you did a couple of weeks ago? Because they're pretty good. Now, they've lost some terrible games too, though.
They've lost a couple bad. They've only lost 2 games. They lost that one game in Chicago because Burrow threw those picks, and they lost.
Well, yeah, the Green Bay.
They lost to Green Bay in a game they could have won. Listen, the NFL
easily.
They easily could have won that game, and I know that that's the NFL, but that is a game that the Bengals could have won. It's funny you mentioned that, because that's another thing about the Browns I was just talking about yesterday. All of a sudden, they're almost beating the Chiefs. How good does that really look? With the Chiefs getting beat up by other teams, man, I don't know. Every time the Browns have hype, it never comes to fruition. And I don't want people to take this the wrong way. I just hate Baker Mayfield. I don't think he's awful. I just don't like him leading my team. I so wish we had Joe Burrow or any of these other guys. I'd do anything for them to trade for Deshaun Watson, because that's going to be the other shoe to drop. That will never happen. It's going to be real interesting to see if they pay Baker. They're not going to pay him huge money, but they might, they're going to have to do something, and I don't know what they're going to do. Man, I've been wanting to ask you about this for a couple of weeks now, so I'm glad I got it out.
Yeah, well, Colin Cowherd did a nice breakdown on Case Keenum starting versus the Cleveland Browns. When it comes down to, he's like, is Baker better than Case Keenum? Yeah, he's better than him. How much better, though? You can't pay Baker Mayfield, Russell Wilson money, because then you're just you're handicapped forever.
The whole point of paying Baker Mayfield is that you would be able to pay him less and then be able to sign, keep Chubb and Hunt, all those Landry and all those guys. The problem is, what you just said, though, is Baker Mayfield better than Case Keenum?
Yeah.
For the future, for sure. I mean, we've seen Case Keenum suck before. Baker Mayfield is better than him. But the fact that we're even asking the question, imagine asking, is freaking Case Keenum better than Lamar Jackson? You know what I mean? Come on. That's the quarterback I want. And I know we don't have it, but the NFL, man, you need it to win. You have to have everything perfect in order to win without that. And again, the Browns are a very good team still. They'll probably make the playoffs and they can make a deep run. But ultimately, I think that's their demise. And Green Bay, almost the opposite. They've got flaws. They've cleaned up a lot of their flaws. They still have flaws defensively. They've got other flaws that they still need to work on. There's a reason they're not the top team in the NFC. But at the end of the day, they have that quarterback that can win them the games against even those teams we just talked about, Tampa, the Rams, the Cardinals. I know they didn't last year, but that doesn't mean they can't this year.
Well, that's what makes it interesting because if you watched, like, if anybody who watched the NFC Championship game, you saw all those flaws come out.
Right?
You know what I mean? Like, you spotted Tom Brady, like, literally 17 points. Then, of course, Aaron has to take the blame for it. And then we hear all offseason, like, well, he couldn't get it done. I'm like, well, that Bucs defense also limited Patrick Mahomes and Drew Brees to a combined 0 touchdowns. So I think I'm cool with the 3 that he scored.
Well, that's the other thing, too. Like, people talk about, like, oh, there's like Aaron Rodgers, didn't get it done. Like, only one quarterback ends up getting it done because only one team wins. It's not all about the quarterback. It's a lot about the quarterback, but it's not all about the quarterback. I mean, when you're in a situation where it's Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers, I mean, both those quarterbacks are elite, right? Like, those guys aren't going to be the difference in the game. It's going to be everything else.
Well, just like that's where like sports can be so interesting. So Tom Brady threw 3 second-half picks in that game, and they were bad picks too. These weren't balls bouncing off the receiver's hands. Like 2 of them were just awful, awful plays. So let's just pretend that Aaron scores on that last drive and the Packers win that game. Like, just think about how much different the narrative is on Tom Brady because of one Aaron Rodgers pass. And that's where like the quarterbacks get so much blame and so much credit when sometimes it's just not up to them. The sample size in like the NFL is so small because you only play X amount of games. And things can happen outside of their control. And then you want your great guy to overcome it. But when the other guy's great too, like, why is it fair to the guy who's getting, maligned over something else just because, he's playing another great player?
The sample size in the NFL is tiny. I'll go back to the Redskins Green Bay game. Again, Green Bay easily won by a couple touchdowns, but a couple plays here and there, and that game is all of a sudden like a 1-possession game with Washington having the ball. I talked about Gibson fell down, and then the next play Heineke threw the pick. How about when Heineke like had a touchdown they called back and then like fumbled, barely going in on the next play? I mean, Washington had like 5 chances to score a touchdown and couldn't get it in. And like, that's the NFL, man. Like, that's the difference between the good teams and the bad teams.
It's also making me remember why I like watching the games at home sober and not going to the game after a few beers, because the game is not nearly as clear in my mind as the normal Packer game that I see.
I know. It's funny because your perspective of it is from the game. But like watching it on TV, it's like, it's the NFL, I feel like now is made for TV. I mean, it just is. And it's almost, you get a clearer view when you're watching it on TV. Obviously, you don't get the game experience, but you get a clearer view.
Well, people always ask me, "Oh, are you just crushing beers while watching the NFL?" And sometimes I'm like, no, I don't. I almost never have drinks during the NFL game because I like watching it from an analytical standpoint. I like being able to come on here on Monday and tell you guys about every play that I saw. And if you've been drinking beer and, or cocktails or whatever during the game, like, it's just not nearly as memorable.
My biggest problem recently has just been watching too much Red Zone, which is fun. It's fun, but you don't get like the, when you watch a game, you really find out about the teams. Now, the problem with watching a game like that is that you're missing the other games. So it's the fine line, right?
Well, and that's why as much as I love noon games as a fan for my team, that's the busiest time. And I want to be able to jump back and forth between all the games to feel like I got something out of them, to feel like I at least checked out a couple possessions of every game. So I know, unless it's like the Jets playing the Texans because I don't care, but like got to see a lot of a little different things so I can see it.
You love when the Packers aren't playing at noon.
Even though I love when they play at noon as a fan, but as like a DFS analyst, like, that's the worst thing that can happen.
They don't play at noon a lot, I feel like. Like, they play in the afternoon and on prime time a lot. The Browns almost always play at noon.
Yeah, East Coast, bad team for a long time. Now it's a little different this year, but that's the way it's forever.
It's a little bit different. The Browns are just on Thursday night, and the Browns have come in with a lot of hype, but again, the Packers have Aaron Rodgers. Oh, wanted to ask you this also, and then we can finish off. What's your take on Rodgers leaving? Because I know, like, a lot of people are like, he's definitely gone. Like, there's, he made the contract so he could, like Tom Brady, do whatever he wants next year. But it looks to me like he's having a lot of fun. If Devontae Adams stays, I think that will be a big part of it. Like, do you not know? Do you have an opinion either way? Do you think he's probably going to stay at this point? Like, what's your take?
So I still think a lot of people don't really get what would happen in the offseason. Like, I still think they thought it was about the money, or him complaining about the players. At no point, if you really listen to him talk, was he ever complaining about who was on his team. And you hear all the stupid comments about like, oh, I guess Rodgers doesn't have enough with his Pro Bowl left tackle and Pro Bowl wide receiver. He was never about the players. He was looking for a cultural shift. The teams that do really well are the teams that are aggressive. You know what I mean? Like the Bucs just coming off a Super Bowl win. What did they went out and do? They went out and got Antonio Brown. They went out and got Rob Gronkowski. They made moves trying to win. And what I'm seeing from Green Bay right now, that at least they're going out and signing some free agents. Is Merciless and Smith going to be difference makers? I don't know, but at least they're trying.
Merciless is good.
Yeah, but at least they're like making moves. Even if the moves don't work out, you tried and you weren't playing for 3 years down the road. We have a small window. We have an aging all-time quarterback. Like all he wants you to do is put your chips in right now and like go for it and not saying we're going to draft a quarterback. Oh, we went to the NFC Championship game. We're going to draft our third running back and a backup quarterback with our first 2 picks.
For sure. That's why I can't be with the Browns that salty either, because for so many years, like all I wanted was a competent team. And if nothing else, like they are competent. Like, you know, they're maybe not as good as they should be right now. But listen, the NFL is such a week-to-week thing. 3 weeks ago, they were like the AFC favorites to win the Super Bowl. So a couple good games. You know, they played Pittsburgh this week. Like they could be right back there. They should still make the playoffs.
And the AFC looks wide open.
Dude, the AFC sucks. It just it sucks for us that the AFC North is really good. The South and the East are awful.
Yeah, I don't know who the best team in the AFC is, whether you think it's Baltimore, Buffalo. I'm sure none of us actually think it's Cincinnati, even though they have the best record right now. The Chargers. I mean, I still think most of us, it's kind of like we talked about with the Lakers. Like, I still think at the end of the year, we think the Chiefs are going to be there.
That's the team I'm thinking. You said, who do I think is the best team in the AFC? It's the Chiefs. They're not, though. They're clearly not the best team in the AFC. I think that if I had to make a list of who the best team in the AFC is right now, I think it's got to be Buffalo. Even though they just lost that game to Tennessee. Listen,
because Josh Allen slipped in a banana peel.
Exactly. They easily could have won that game. And that when we're making lists like that, that matters. Like a loss is a loss, so their win-loss record is the same, but easily could have won that game. Were favored throughout the majority of that game. Lost the first game, which was kind of fluky against Pittsburgh. Pounded the Chiefs. They just look like the best team. Then I want to say the Ravens, but they just got pounded by the Steelers. And it's hard to say the Chargers because they got pounded by the Ravens. And that's the NFL this year. I mean, the Bengals, I just don't know, man. I think Chase and Burrow are going to be lethal for years to come. I'm just not sure how good like their lines and defense are. Like
their defense is vastly improved, but it's still not like you're not scared of the Bengals defense, but it's not a joke anymore.
Fair enough. It's not a joke. And I mean, they're on the field less now because their offense is so good. But are they good enough to like lead a team deep into the playoffs? Probably not. It's funny though, man, I'm so interested to see what happens with Deshaun Watson too, because like that's going to be a big move.
Well, and the team that people don't really want to give any credit to, but how about the Raiders?
Another good
Raiders
this week in a game I thought they would lose. That's a good call, man. Seems like the Broncos have fallen off big time, and the Raiders have not. I respect that. I don't think the Raiders are going to be there at the end. I think the Bengals are actually better than the Raiders, but they're right there. I mean, the Browns, Bengals, Raiders, like all those teams are similar.
Like, and I also don't give the Raiders credit, even though you and I discussed massive differences how we view a situation over there last week. Like, I don't give the Raiders any credit, but like I was hearing a few people talk about yesterday, they look like a team that was so happy to get him out of there. Like they're playing free and loose. Derek Carr looks like he's one of the happiest guys in the world right now. I don't give him any credit, though.
He's another guy I didn't even mention when talking about Baker Mayfield. He's better than Baker Mayfield. Like, no doubt. I don't even think that's a question. Do you agree?
I mean, no, he's been playing really well, but they're another team. Like, if you ask me what I thought the odds are that they're going to, like, be there at the end of the year, like, I give them, like, 1% chance. But I like their defense. Their offense is playing well.
And, I'll just say this. Sorry to cut you off about the Chiefs. It just might not be their year. Like, thing is, they've been there, done that, coming off the Super Bowl loss. Like,
They get everybody's best shot.
oh, that's the other thing. Great point. Like, it's almost like Alabama in college. Like, every team that's facing the Chiefs is like, doesn't matter what their record is, like by far their best shot. And that matters. Like, they're in prime time a lot. It just might not be their year. That said, I still think at the end of the year they'll be there. Was quite shocked to see them get routed by Tennessee and not being able to do anything offensively. First time I've really seen that from them.
Yeah, I mean, how good are the Titans? I was ragging on them a couple of weeks ago, but their defense has played a lot better the last 2 games.
Their defense has been playing a lot better. I think the Titans are good. I think the Titans are right there with the Browns, Raiders, Bengals. They might be the best of that bunch right now, though.
It's interesting.
If that defense can just be like, okay, the Titans' offense is real good, like very good. I think Tannehill's good, not great, but a better version of Baker Mayfield. He's more athletic. He's smarter. He makes good throws. Their receivers are obviously good, especially now A.J. Brown getting involved. And man, Henry, like, it's funny. Teams go in, like, all we got to do is stop Derrick Henry. And no one can stop Derrick Henry. It reminds me a little bit of Sean Alexander when he was at the Seahawks, but he's just so much better. Like, it's rare to see a guy like this in the NFL just overpower all these guys.
And he still has not given me $1 to be thankful for his professional career.
Yeah.
I saved his ass. I was telling everybody how everybody got all excited about him, and he was just awful his first year and a half. He was not good. And then I called him out on the show, and he was good the next day. So I have to get some of the credit right here. Just one of these days, if you could even just like retweet me or something, I'd be happy with that.
It's so funny. Did you see his long touchdown run on Monday night?
Yeah.
When he's running like that in open space, like, it doesn't even look like he's that fast. And he's incredibly fast, like way faster than anyone his size should be.
What was the question I put on Twitter last year? And I got, who would you think you'd have a better chance tackling? Just like a normal, like, human being like me or you, or like any of you guys listening. Tyreek Hill or Derrick Henry? Like, who do you think you'd have a better chance of tackling?
Shaq or Iverson question.
Well, yeah, and I'm like, I think I would have a better chance of tackling Henry because you might just be able to touch him. Like, I don't think I could touch Tyreek Hill. With Henry, I just hope, like, maybe, like, I get his shoelace and he trips.
Well, I'll say this. I don't think I could touch either. Because, like, but if we're in, like, it depends what the scenario. If we're in, like, doing, like, an Oklahoma drill, so we're in, like, a certain, squared off area, the answer's got to be Tyreek Hill.
Sure. I think I said open field, though.
Okay. Open field, the answer's Henry, but, like, I don't think I'd be able to catch him either.
Well, yeah, I'm not catching anybody. I'm just saying, like, if I could just get in front of him, and then not me, any of you guys listening to it, just like a normal human being, and just be like, maybe you could just, like, dive at his feet at the right time, and maybe he trips on you. Because, like, we'd never be able to touch Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, agreed. I'm with you.
So, I mean, the answer's neither, but I'm just saying, like, hypothetically, like, if you had a 1% chance to win $10 million, like, let me try to dive at Derrick Henry's feet and hope I get a shoelace.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, guys, this went way off subject, but we haven't had a lot of time to talk sports together. So we thought we'd just let it run. Have a good day for the 3 of you still listening.
Thanks a lot, guys.